Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the week, or in fact, the fortnight in cell and gene therapy, because we haven't done this for a week, and anything else we'd like to talk about as well. With me, your host, Rizwan Chaudhry, and my co host, Audrey Greenberg, who started a new job a couple of weeks
Yes,
ago, and which is why we've had a bit of a delay because we've both been traveling so much. We haven't had a chance to actually sit down and catch up. So,
very true.
Audrey, it's lovely to see you. Maybe was I think when we had the last episode, you hadn't officially told everybody what your new role was. So
Yes.
where are you working these days?
I am working at the Mayo Clinic as a venture partner. It's a new role that they've created for folks that are focused on entrepreneurial efforts within the organization, looking for breakthroughs, commercial applications that can be spun off into new entities. So, very excited about this role. And actually, we haven't officially even announced it yet. So, this might be a little premature, but I believe they're doing the official announcement next week. So, that's when we're going to be going public with everything. But your viewers get to hear it first. So exciting.
All right, we can always delay posting this till Monday, you
No, it's fine.
know. All right, cool. Well, look, I know you've had a really busy 2 weeks, Audrey, and lots been going on within the whole sector. So, as always, what caught your eye in the last 2 weeks in cell and gene therapy,
Oh
Audrey?
my gosh, I think everyone's talking about this. Even my friends that, are manicurists are talking about this because it made its way to the New York Times. But this week's headlines really had an impact. I would say CHOP treated a toddler with a rare, ultra rare actually, and fatal CNS disorder. And the mutation was de novo. So it was one patient, one therapy, one cure. This is quite unique. They basically CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, my hometown. Let's go Philly. And Penn, they're part of Penn Medicine or related to Penn Medicine. They basically used a customized CRISPR base editor and delivered mRNA manufactured by Aldebaran, LNP formulation developed by Acutus Therapeutics, guide RNA and safety analytics from IDT, all under the umbrella of Danaher. And so this is a very unique thing that happened, obviously saving a baby's life, delivered via intrathecal injection under FDA expanded access. So this was not a trial.
I know.
And I think it's the first use of mRNA and LNP for personalized CRISPR. And it shows really that commercial grade platforms like those scaled for vaccines can now be used to support an N of one medicine. So it's pretty unique, quite breakthrough, and I think it raises a lot of questions. And I guess the first question would be, how do we build manufacturing that flexes down to one? We spent the last 10 years talking about how do we scale up? How do we scale up? Now we need to scale down and we need to distribute access widely, excuse me. Second, how do we regulate therapies that won't be repeated? I mean, I think there's like 12 patients worldwide that have this ultra rare indication. And third, I think all the commercial people are always focused on this. Can any payer cover this? Or does the model depend on philanthropy and soft capital? So this was really a biotech moonshot, but the rocket was built by companies we already know. And it's almost like Danaher is the AWS of cell and gene therapy or of advanced therapy manufacturing. So it's kind of interesting. Those with the platform that can distribute it widely can win. And I think candidly and coincidentally, at ASGCT, what I understand, platforms were back. It's sexy again, and it's somewhat related to how this worked as well.
Yeah, and I was at SGCT, as you know, not this week, but the week before, and they had a massive little celebration on the show floor. Was
It's
Aldebaran
amazing.
and IDT were both there. In fact, they were diagonally opposite to each other, so they synchronized a little announcement of the news, a little banner dropping from the Aldebaran booth, and then both sets of teams first were having little photographs with poppers going off. Then they combined the two teams and had pictures at each other's stands. So, and maybe actually brings another question to mind is that Danaher obviously are a huge company and have,
Yeah.
through acquisition, bought lots of different businesses to help people through the workflows. And this is maybe an example of having a business which has all these companies who can work in partnership because they are sister companies to help come up and help a therapeutic come to market. So that's quite interesting, and whether that drives other larger organizations, in quotes, to go through the same route. And you're seeing that obviously maybe with Thermo and other companies as well, where they are acquiring different businesses and trying to fit them together to help customers with their workflows, and maybe having that uh, consistency of standards across all the businesses and the relationships they have help them get to the therapies quicker as well. Who knows? So
Absolutely. It takes a village, not only public-private partnerships, but equipment manufacturers, and technology developers working together to create these next generation of cures.
so congratulations to Dana and everyone who worked on the project. So
Absolutely. And congratulations to the family who
yes,
there's a
100%.
beautiful, yeah, and there's a beautiful picture. If you look at the New York Times photo, there's obviously a beautiful picture of the baby, but then also there's a beautiful picture of the family. They have three other kids. This was not genetic, by the way. And so it's very interesting. It was a gene mutation, non-inherited, and just an incredible work by the scientists at Penn and CHOP.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations to everyone concerned. So, what else caught your eye in the last 2 weeks?
Well, I think going back to ASGCT, it might be old news by now, but my understanding, based on everything I read and everyone I talked to, it was a great conference, and it was less about hype and more about translation. So I think the key stories were Prime Medicine showed clinical signal in CGD prime editing is real. So Prime Medicine is making a lot of strides forward, and Immunosoft presented first in human results for engineered B cells, and that's a breakthrough as well. Intellia had a 2-year follow up for ATTR, which was proof of durability. And then Dino and Affinia are racing for capsid superiority in CNS muscle eye and eye targeting. So a lot of interesting things happening scientifically, but what I would say is that editing is diversifying. You have base, you have prime, you have B cells, and you have programmable platforms. Second, delivery innovation is accelerating, as we saw with the pen case. And you've got capsids, you've got non-viral, and you have spray-based systems. So, and inhaled and those alike. And then the platform went from being very sexy, high valuation back to being in the dumps. And now it's really the platform premium is definitely back, but you now need data obviously to support it.
Yep. And HGCT was a very good event, I must say, as I was attending it. Everyone was very pleased overall with the event. But what was quite interesting was, given that it followed ICT, from a vendor's perspective, I think it'll be quite interesting to see what happens next year for those two respective events, because vendors who went to both actually were able then to compare both events side by side and decide which one was the right audience for them to attend next year. So where this year they may have done both, next year they might only pick one of the two, because they can actually do a true comparison of how those events and the audiences are right fit for them and the solutions that they're offering.
Yeah, very good. And you know what? Despite the headlines about, CBER and CEDAR and people getting terminated or quitting, there was I think a headline today that 10% of people at CBER and CEDAR quit after they had the headcount reductions. There are tons of clinical milestones and regulatory moves happening as well. We saw that Capsida got IND clearance. At CINA's XLRS program is showing safety. Pepramine achieved CR in follicle lymphoma with BAFFR CAR T. And we have Madera posted positive gene therapy results, as well as Brainstorm was cleared for phase 3B in ALS. So the regulatory agencies are not only open, they're very engaged. And the RMAT and the orphan designations continue to flow, which is great news for CGT, obviously. And then last, I would say expanded access, as seen with the case we mentioned at the top of this podcast and the CHOPS case, might quietly becoming a legitimate alternative to these trials in ultra rare. So that's very interesting and something to watch.
Cool. Right. So
Yeah.
what else would you like to talk about?
Well, I think the last thing is just what's happening in manufacturing, and tools, like we said with Aldebaran and Danaher and IDT. So a couple things to mention there. Soleno earned FDA MT designations for its IPSC plus AI automation manufacturing system. So that's something really interesting to read about. Synthigo launched GMP grade Cas9, so moving from their gene editing platform from concept into the clinic.
Yeah,
And then Applied Stem Cell, who I know quite well, Ruby Tsai is the CEO, and she's just a genius scientist who's an incredibly nice lady. And she unveiled hypoimmunogenic iPSC lines, which has been a big issue for iPSC. So they launched that, which is critical, as we all know, for allogeneic, which dramatically reduces the cost from autologous. So I'm really happy for Applied Stem Cell. And then SoMite AI, which is backed by 𝐤𝐶𝐤 Ventures, is building foundational models for cell therapy design. So that's very interesting. They're partnered with a smart VC that is trying to come up with an AI application for cell therapy. And I
cool.
think the just the takeaway in this category, manufacturing, would be that, we're witnessing, I think, really the build out of an entire new biotech infrastructure layer, which includes AI native, coupled with modular and programmable applications and manufacturing applications. And so the winners in this category aren't going to be the ones with just assets. They'll also have to own the tools.
That's very true.
And then oh, I want to mention a couple other things which I found quite interesting. Regenex Bio. So this is in the sort of, I would guess I would call this strategic moves in capital. Regenex monetized royalties of 250 million by selling a designation, and I think that it's just an interesting time for monetizing assets. Second, Abina's PRV sale for 155 shows. Oh, that was the one they sold their voucher. So the monetization of royalties and the selling of vouchers are both interesting moves in this market. And they sold it for 155 million, as I said. And then third, CRISPR Therapeutics partnered with Sirius on multi-target siRNA development platform. So that's an interesting move in terms of partnerships, and what they're going after in siRNA. And then Cure Duchenne's, which is a organization, obviously a patient advocacy organization, invested in an asset Entos to develop redosable full-length DMD gene therapy. So it's very rare and risky, but potentially very rewarding and a game-changing bet. So I guess I just close by saying, with Chop's case, it's not just a one-off. I really do think it's a roadmap for the future and others will follow. And I guess, will the FDA open up a dedicated N of one approval pathway? I don't know. I guess we all have to watch. And Danaher is obviously quietly or publicly, sounds like they had a party with, with poppers and whatnot, enabling this treatment. And do they become the AWS of personalized biotech? And then obviously capsid innovation is back, and we need to watch the IP battles and licensing plays. And I think we'll all gear up for meeting on the Mesa in 2025 in October, taking place in Phoenix, and we'll see whether the ecosystem by that time starts formalizing frameworks for these personalized therapies. So the idea that biotech must scale to billions may no longer be true, and the new thesis is the flex to one and build platforms that can do it again tomorrow.
Right. Well, that's a great recap. Now, one question I'm going to ask you, because I know you commented on the story, was about Montana, the state of Montana, and encouraging biotechs to come to their state and do clinical trials there. So maybe you can tell viewers a bit more about that story, because I think that's quite an interesting story. And
Yeah.
it's it was interesting when the person posted the story. I think they thought, what a great idea this is, but then the responses in the comments, I think, pointed out that people were genuinely concerned that anyone would start to do something like this. But perhaps you could tell the viewers a bit more about the story.
Well, let me just talk more generally first about how competitive the states can be with each other and the incentives in the form of lump sum payments, tax credits, and co-pays in terms of built facility builds and also, by the way, as in the case of Massachusetts, actually investing in companies for a return. So the states are very competitive with one another. I think that look, if something is beneficial for patients, I don't have a problem with it. But if it's
Sure.
something that is putting safety and efficacy um, at risk, then clearly I wouldn't support that.
I think that is the issue with this particular situation, though, isn't it? Because,
I actually don't know the details. So maybe you can tell me.
well, I was trying to look it up on Google before we started talking about it. Actually, now my fingers aren't that fast. But let me see, because I'm trying to see if I find the story. Because Montana are actually incentivizing companies to move there and do their clinical trials. But there is some question about the uh, the regulatory aspects
Okay.
of the process. What I'll do actually, because rather than waste everybody's time while I search Google to find the story, which I should have prepared before, but that's what happens when you're home late and you're trying to do things around the house. You don't always prepare as you should. I'm not as organized as you are, Audrey. It has to be said. So, but I'll bring it up for the next time we do this because I think it is a very interesting story, and I'm sure lots of viewers will have a comment on what they think Montana are doing, whether it's right for them to do it in the first place as well. Right, so Audrey, you've got your new job. I know you're sort of really busy with it. So, but you're going to be at Buyer. So, where are you going to be over the next couple of weeks then? Because viewers, must point out, with Audrey starting a new role and I'm traveling so much, we may actually cut this down to only once a fortnight rather than once a week, just from a practical point of view, or as and when we can fit it in, hopefully. But in terms of so what are you looking forward to over the next few weeks in terms of events, stories, things you're looking forward to seeing within this space?
Well, I'm obviously very excited to go to bio. And I think that this year is an interesting one because we are starting to see the market loosen up just a bit. In healthcare overall, maybe not in CGT specifically, but in healthcare overall, the market is beginning to open up. So I'm excited to sort of see the new energy taking place at Bio. And it's always good to be in Boston. And then also just getting kickstarted on my new gig and getting integrated into Mayo. And it's just a pleasure to be part of such a stellar organization that really puts the patient first in front of at the top of the decision making process.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations. Good luck with the new role. And viewers, I will be in Bio, all being well, in a few weeks' time. But prior to that, I will also be in Basel next week for Future Labs, talking all about lab digitalization. The week after that, I will be at ASMS, which is going to be quite interesting because there are quite a few companies historically haven't been there who are going to be there this year, uh, which is showing how mass spec is actually getting a wider use across the different therapies. After that, I'm going to be another event which is very topical, which is MPS in Brussels, which is all about iPSCs and organoids, which obviously are in the news massively at the moment with the FDA talking about phasing out animal testing. And then and only then will I be at Bio. So if you're at Bio, make sure you come and say hello to Audrey and to me and let us know what's been happening in your world, which I'd love to find out as well. So
By the
Audrey,
way, if you can train people on how to do mass spec, that would be a great thing. They're very
uh,
hard to come by.
I know, but the instrumentation is, I have to say, from a mass spec manufacturer's perspective, they've tried to simplify the process with the equipment that they're actually launching. So every time I go to SMS, every year they talk about how it's even easier to use than it was, but it's even more powerful than it was before as well, which is quite amazing the technology they put into mass spec as well. So look out for my reports from ASMS in a couple of weeks because all the big manufacturers will be there launching some fantastic new instrumentation, and I will be at every single press conference, all being well, to share some of the slides and stories that they've been sharing. So Audrey, it's always a pleasure. Sorry it took 2 weeks to do this rather than a week, but we're both really busy, so it's understandable. Enjoy your time at Mayo. I hope it settling period goes in very, very well. I look forward to catching you, hopefully, it may be a fortnight's time. I'll give you a break next week so you can concentrate on your day job, and we can maybe catch up properly and see what's been happening.
Sounds good.
So, viewers, thank you for watching. Any thoughts or views you've got, or any comments you've got in terms of what's been going on in the CGT space or anywhere else, or any stories you've seen you'd like to share, feel free to put them in the comments below. And until next time, as always, stay well, stay safe. Bye bye. And that's